In this video, we will talk about the cameras in Cinema 4D. Now, the cameras in Cinema 4D are 3D cameras that represent the normal cameras we have in the real world, okay? All the properties that a real world camera has, the cameras in Cinema 4D also has it, okay? So let's just create a camera. This is where the cameras are. Under the object palette here, you see the cameras here. So this is a camera, okay? Now with the camera selected, when you come to the attributes manager, go to the object tab. This is where you can change the parameters of the camera. We have the focal length. This is where you will select the focal length of your lens. Okay, so it depends on what you are rendering. Okay, if you are doing a product shot, I know if you're a photographer and you want to take a product shot, mostly it's advisable to use a longer focal length, somewhere like 100mm to maybe 200mm, so that you can get there won't be any distortion in the shape of the object, because when you use a wide angle on a product shots, because it's a wide angle, it's like the closer to the lens it's bigger, and then when it goes far away from the lens, it squeezes its size. I don't know if there are any photographers among you, but this is what the lens is all about. So by default, we have the 36mm lens, which is the classic lens, and you can change the lens by choosing the preset here, or you can enter your own lens. So we have the super wide, which is the 15mm. We have the wide angle 25mm, the classic, the normal lens, which is 50mm. It's considered the normal lens. Okay, we have the portrait, which is 80mm. We have the tele 135, and we have the super tele 300mm. Okay, you can actually enter the focal length you want right here. And we have the sensor the sensor size. This is the film gauge. This is a sensor of the camera that you're going to use. Okay, so let's say you're designing something, a 3D object that will be later on put inside a real world footage or a film. Like maybe you are making a VFX that will be later on be rendered and put inside a film. You have to know the length that particular scene that you are working on was shot in. You have to know the sensor size. There are so many things you have to know so that you can create a very beautiful and realistic VFX that when you put inside, nobody can tell the difference between, oh, this is computer generated or this is real. Okay, you have to match the camera that was used to shot that footage or that picture. Okay, so we have the film sensor gauge, where by default we have 35mm photo. Okay, that is mostly the sensor gauge and new modern cameras. We also have the micro four third, which is somehow twice the size of a full frame lens. Okay, so if you use 25mm lens on a micro four third camera, it's equivalent to 50mm on a full frame camera. So you have to do those mathematical calculations to actually know more about this. Okay, so this is all about cameras, and you can dive into it by learning more about the physical cameras, how they operate, the shutter speed, and all those things. But this one, I'm going to show you the basic of the Cinema 4D camera system have inside. So when you move to the physical tab, okay, this is where you can change the f-stop and shutter speed and exposure. Okay, so we have f-stop of 8. You can change it down. F-stop is the same as the aperture. Okay, if you do photography, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, the higher the aperture, the lower light passes through, and the lower the aperture, the more light that will pass through. Okay, and if you want to have a blur background, the aperture also counts, because if the aperture is lower, that means your sensor is wide open. Okay, so an aperture of maybe 1.2 will let in more light, and you have a blur background, who we call the bokeh, okay, than an aperture of 8. Okay, and we also have the ISO. By default, it's not enabled, but when you enable the exposure, we have the ISO. This is where you can change the ISO of your camera. Okay, and we also have the shutter speed. Okay, the shutter speed of your camera. This is where you can change them. As I said, this is the basic properties or parameters of the camera. If you really want to know more about cameras, you have to learn it from a real life camera, because Cinema 4D is just mimicking a real life camera. Okay, this is a 3D view. It's just mimicking a real life camera. Okay, so it's just doing as if you are going to take a photograph or you're going to take a movie, and then this is my selection of camera and this is my selection of lens. So if you know more about your real life cameras, you know how to compose your scenes, you know how to set up your camera, and then you're good to go.